Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the White Coat Club. I have Amanda here, and we are going to continue our essay mini series. So, today we're going to get focused on the why us essay or why this school essay. So, we're going to be diving into that and best practices for how to answer and how to research those. Don't forget to like and subscribe to get more great content from us and continue on as we continue with the essay series. Hey, Amanda, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. So like I said, the why us essay, I feel like this is one of the biggest challenges that our students have, at least my students, and I think it's one of the most challenging essays to write. Um, so I guess we could break it down, what you think about it.
Yeah. So, some examples of these of how schools might ask you this might be super straightforward or they ask for very specific things.
Sure.
So an example, like some more simple ones, they might just straight up ask, why are you interested in attending insert school? Or even one sentence, why insert schools? Whereas some schools get a little bit more specific. So Duke, for example, they've asked, what is your sense of Duke as a university and a community, and why do you consider it a good match for you? If there's something in particular about our offerings that attracts you, feel free to share that as well. And Penn could ask something like, considering the specific undergraduate school you have selected, how will you explore your academic and intellectual interests at the University of Pennsylvania? So, schools have a wide range of how they will ask you this question. Some might just ask to the point, and then some have maybe specific things they want you to talk about. Nicole, any thoughts on these questions?
I mean, eh, they want you to be as specific as possible, which we'll kind of talk about, but like you said, the more simple questions of why this school or why are you interested in attending X school, some of them do get a little bit more complex and ask a little bit more specific of what is your sense of the school as a university and as a community, and why do you feel like it's a good match for you? They'll might ask, like, is there something in particular about what we offer at the school that attracts you to us? Um, they're going to say, considering the undergraduate program that you selected, how are you going to continue to explore your academic and intellectual interests at this school? So some do get a little bit more specific about the programs, and they want you to, go in that route specifically. Whereas, like you said, some schools just why us, and you have the freedom to kind of chat about a little bit of everything versus just specific programs.
Yeah.
I would say this is an essay that needs brainstorming. So sometimes, I always recommend brainstorming, but sometimes depending on the prompt, you don't really need to do a huge amount of brainstorm. It might be very straightforward and the student might have a great story to write about. However, for these, I you absolutely need to research and you absolutely need to brainstorm. And I think, especially if you're a student who's going to be applying to many schools, it may make sense to kind of lump this brainstorm slash research together. Yes, each essay is going to have to be extremely specific, but if you're already in kind of that deep dive for each school, just kind of like going through and doing all of the research for some of these schools at the same time, just so that way you can kind of bounce off of ideas off of each other.
Mhm.
So, in terms of research, we always say research, research. I think students sometimes don't know really where to do the research at. Um, what do you typically recommend?
I always recommend first the school website and not just going to the about page. We mean like go through every tab. Like whenever I was doing research for schools, like my laptop literally overheated and it was because I had 50 tabs open, but it is super important. Like they are well aware that they have an amazing website. There's organizations, academics, so many opportunities. Always press like those little arrows that always say about and then you just keep going. I usually start with the school website. Sometimes I ask students to look on YouTube, not just at the like general school, like their promotional videos, but sometimes those week in my life vlogs can be really helpful. Obviously, maybe not name dropping them in an essay, but just kind of seeing what organizations are out there from students who are maybe in the same major as you, who go to the same school that you want to go to. That's kind of my starting point. Nicole, where do you start?
Yeah, I love the social media aspect too. Looking at students that are there, where are they eating? What are they doing? Where are they going? What are they talking about? Because they may mention, like, oh, we're going to this club or something that you may not have heard of before. And then you could use that to research that club further.
Hmm.
So I love social media. I love looking at like the location. And even if you're not going to discuss like these specific aspects, I think it's just easy to write about something that you've seen a lot about and you've consumed a lot about.
Hmm.
So consume as much as you can. I like to look at like the geotag locations on like Instagram or something, and then you can see all of the students that are posting at that specific place, and then kind of see what they're doing. And there's tons of vloggers. I think it's a great way to just learn more, and then hear maybe you hear certain things that are said that then you can go ahead and research.
Hmm.
I also I get a lot of students who'll say, okay, so I know where to research, but what should I be researching? Like, what should I be looking at? And I think that there's kind of two different strategies or two different approaches that you could have. Um, what do you want that you want to be talking about things that stand out to you, but then how do you find something that stands out to you? Or should you maybe take the backwards approach and say, well, I really want to be a researcher. So I'm going to specifically the research their types of research programs and research activities on campus because I'm going to highlight the fact that that's important to me because I've done research and because I'm interested in research. Someone who has a research background that wants to research at college should not be talking about their art program, right? Like that makes there's no there's no relevance there. So sometimes I usually tell students research points that are of interest to you first and points that you want to showcase to the admissions team that you have an interest in, and then connect the dots there versus just blindly looking at the website and trying to find something that stands out to you. And then, looking at once you find programs, looking at the course catalogs, looking at the opportunities that they have there, whether for research, for internships, clubs, organizations. And then again, the things that you're passionate about should be what you're specifically looking for that
Hmm.
the school has. And then again, that I guess that'll kind of segue into, what the format and kind of like the format could be for these essays as well. Is there a specific format that you typically recommend or
Yeah.
try to aim for?
Yeah, sometimes it just depends on the word count as well. Obviously, we're looking at a million things, but of course, being mindful of word count. But when it comes to like the format, I've always taken the approach of, and this is also I did it as well when I was applying. So I started with like my academics, and then I went into organizations, and then the research opportunities I wanted to do. I didn't have them like in terms of this is the most important, but I wanted to make sure I had all of my content there.
Absolutely. And, it should be for each thing that you're discussing about the school, there should be a little bit of a background how it relates to you.
Hmm.
So, this is exciting for me because I've done research and I want to continue my research path, or the state of the arts, ceramic facility is important to me because ceramics is a passion of mine and I want to continue it in my college career. There should be specific reasons
Hmm.
instead of just saying, that you like certain aspects. And then I think that kind of gets into a lot of times what I'll have to tell students is we want to avoid teaching language in
Hmm.
these. And like, you don't want to be telling someone something that they already know. These are the admissions counselors for this school. They're passionate about their school. They know things about their school. So if you're going to say Duke University has a state of the art, microbiological lab and that's the sentence, they're going to say, we know that. And so you need to say, I'm excited for Duke University's, microbiological lab because I've done microbiology research at UMass Amherst's program and I want to continue it. There needs to be that secondary piece of it instead of just
Hmm.
telling them that they have something. Like they already know that.
Yes.
It may seem obvious, but so many times we'll have to rework sentences because students are using just kind of that teaching
Hmm.
language.
Yeah.
Do you find that a lot with your students?
Yes, 100%. I always want to know your why with everything, including classes, including even student organizations. I want to see like a reason and not just kind of doing like a catalog with it. Yeah, like you said, Nicole, they are well aware of everything either way. Um, but yeah, just making
Yeah.
sure you back up everything.
So we want a reason for everything. Now, what are some, I always love to talk about this. What are some topics to avoid? And we can
Yeah.
talk about examples as well. You know, I don't want to hear about I love the school because it's an in-state option and the costs will be, less. I don't want to really hear about, trying to get out of the Northeast and be in sunny Florida.
Mhm.
Or Forbes ranked you as number one for, so that's why I want to go here.
Yeah.
What are some other things that you usually tell your kids to avoid?
Yeah, sometimes I will say avoid the size unless you can showcase like why it's really important to you. Like you said, Nicole, these schools are well aware. UT Austin knows that they are huge. The liberal arts schools know that they are small. Like they are aware of those. Unless there's something that like absolutely sells you on this, let's not mention it. Location as well. This is kind of dependent on the opportunities. So obviously if you are looking into big city schools, if you're doing BSMD, obviously there's access to do things there. Make it specific. But in terms of like, I want to be in New York City, it's been my dream since I was a little girl. It was everybody's dream when they were a little girl. Make it like
Exactly.
specific to you. Those are
Yeah.
just some things. Anything else, Nicole?
No, absolutely. Kind of that cliche, my dad has always worn a Duke basketball,
Mhm.
jersey every year, kind of that tie. We don't need to talk about it. I want it to be much more specific to why you want to study there and why you want to, receive your education from there versus it was just always something that was kind of in the back of your head. Now, so when it comes to location as well, I mean, I don't think that should be one of your main pieces. So in terms of word count, obviously that's going to vary, but usually I aim for students to have at least three main specific things about the school. I don't want location to be one of them. Now, if it's in your backyard and it makes sense, right? Like you live in Raleigh and, Duke is your number one school and, it does make sense to mention that. Like I could love to continue, studying in my backyard and in this area, it can be something that you say. You don't need to leave it out completely, but I would rather see it like in the conclusion or something like that versus having that be one of your main points.
Right.
So you can mention it, but again, not going to be one of your main points. Depending on word count, I want almost like three paragraphs, each one discussing one specific item, why it relates to you, um, and then kind of maybe concluding with a little bit more of a personal thing.
Hmm.
Anything else that you usually tell students to avoid?
I think we've said this 100 times and we will say it 100 times again. Just listing things without explaining your why. If you are mentioning like a class or an opportunity, they want to know how you would absolutely utilize this. Something I've been telling my students, in order to tell us why, it was like, if we were to drop you off at your school right now, what is the first thing you're running to and why? Like, you're not just gonna run up to a classroom and just sit there. Why are you excited to be there? So really think about that. Always share a why instead of just listing.
Absolutely. Yeah, you need to be related to you. They need to really see themselves. And then always backtracking. Why are they asking you this question?
Hmm.
Right? They want to see the passion behind it. They want to see that you're a good fit for their school. If you're discussing points that they have and exactly why it aligns with what you want to do and what your interests are, they're going to think you're a good fit.
Hmm.
So, it's not always the place to say, look at all the research I've done or look at these cool things. Like you really allow them to understand that you would be a good fit for them versus they're just a good fit for you.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's truly, this is one of those ones that needs to be very as specific as possible. And then I do get this a lot for like our BSMD students that we work with. We don't want to talk about, I want to be in this program because it'll save me time or because it's like a direct to med school. Like they
Hmm.
know that that's kind of an obvious, like that's
Hmm.
one of the more obvious reasons as to why. Um, but now some kids who are applying to, let's use Brown as an example. And this may put you on the spot a little bit.
Hmm.
Brown asks why Brown, and then they also will ask like why the PLME program, right? So do you ever have students who mention the PLME program as part of why Brown?
Yeah.
And why Brown is unique because it's only 50 words, one sentence. So that's a challenge in and of itself. But even if it was a longer prompt, like do you typically have students put in their specific BSMD program as one of their whys? or focus more on the school as a whole?
I think for me, what I've noticed is looking at the school as a whole for this. Um, that's just kind of how I've done it. Nicole, what have you done with your
No,
students?
I've done the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I, I even if I think a lot of kids for Brown talk about like bridging the gap between the sciences and the humanities, and
Hmm.
it's always the same, um, which is what the PLME does, right?
Yeah.
So you don't need to spell out that, but you can still state like your intention of what the school is going to do for you. Because again, even if you don't get into PLME, you're and you get into Brown, you're likely going to go there and take advantage of their open curriculum, which is their own question. So Brown gets tricky, but yeah, I would focus much more on the school as a whole for even any college, even if you're doing a direct program. Don't focus on the program itself and just say, this is the offerings of the school in general.
Hmm.
Again, potentially mentioning it depending on word count, but I'd rather you focus on the school.
Yeah.
Um, Now I have some students who are doing the LECOM program, and it's a school that is really just, why are you applying to this school? And I think for some of those schools at LECOM that offer the LECOM program, they're smaller, more middle of the road tier universities. So I think for that, I think that would be appropriate for that type of school to say,
Hmm.
like, this is what drove me to come here. Because I think that matters to admissions, like what specific programs that they offer that other schools may not offer, that is driving you to apply to the school that you likely may not have otherwise applied.
Hmm.
For like bigger name, and like the Duke question, University of Pennsylvania, I do think you need to focus much more on the mission of their school, the offerings of their school that are non-program specific, but just overall, like opportunity and things like that.
Hmm.
Would that be your approach?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Yes.
So again, as specific as possible, tailoring it to even, each school having a different kind of strategy there. But, kind of going back, I think one of the main things is absolutely you're not going into this blindly. You absolutely need to do the research, need to outline it, need to think about what pieces am I really going to highlight? What are my whys? What are my examples? Obviously within the word count. Um, but yeah, just focusing on, what makes them a great fit for you and make it make sense as to why you're applying. And then hopefully that's kind of what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Anything else for this one?
Um, Something to kind of be mindful of, and I've had students kind of trip up before, is reading the question on why the college versus why a school at your college. So I know
Yes.
Michigan kind of gets people tripped up of they might ask you something of like why our college, but they're asking like, well, why do you want to apply to College of Arts, Sciences, and Letters? So just kind of being mindful of reading the question in its entirety. Is it about the entire school or is it about a sub school within the school?
Yes. University of Pennsylvania is the same. It's like
Yes.
considering the undergraduate school that you've selected. And I think it's tripped people up before because I've met with students who have said, this is my research, this is what I want to talk about. And I'm saying, you're discussing, this is a master's program,
Hmm.
not even in the school of which you are applying to.
Yeah.
Like, this is not something you can talk about. And I think it is confusing. I mean, we throw these words around because we've been doing this for years and years, but
Yeah.
sometimes I really have to spell it out for kids. Like, there are colleges within the school
Yeah.
itself that you're applying to, or there's a school within the college. Like, it can kind of even go both ways.
Yeah.
Um, like if you're applying to the School of Arts and Sciences within this university, there's different, ways to talk about it. So really making sure you're researching the correct specific pieces.
Yes.
And then also another thing to avoid, it just popped in my brain before. um, we don't want to talk about like the football team
Yeah.
or, school spirit, I think is important. And I think sometimes, the atmosphere is something they pride themselves on, but we don't need to say, you're an SEC school or like there's sororities and that's what I
Hmm.
want to do. I've had students write about things like that too.
Yeah.
Not something, but in your conclusion, you can maybe in your final sentence have had kids say like, oh, I'm super excited to, sport my crimson next semester.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you're talking about like Alabama or something
Right.
like that, like a cheeky kind of ending, but we're not going to make that a main point. Similar to like weather and location.
For sure. Something else to look into for the clubs and organizations you may want to join, make sure that they're still around. There might be an organization that sounds super interesting, but you go to their Instagram and it hasn't been active since 2017. Just be mindful that the organizations or anything you're talking about are still at the university.
Absolutely. I've seen that too. Like, oh, look at this research thing that they did. And it's like, well, that was 5 years ago. I don't
Yeah.
know. This is not still active. And yeah,
Yeah.
no, 100%. And it does take time. It really does. And like, it needs to be kind of truly going down the rabbit hole on all different media avenues and just kind of overloading yourself and taking notes while you're doing so. And then keywords that then you're going to research after that. Like it really needs to be a deep dive.
Yeah.
And then I guess, like I said, once you're for one school, it's like, okay, I can do that again for the next school. And you're kind of remembering like, oh, well, I really want to write about Duke's microbiology lab. And they have like a really great one. So let me see if, you know, um, UPIT has a microbiology lab also. Like let me see what theirs looks like. And like you can really just kind of continue and go and continue down the hole with multiple schools at the same time. Just make sure you're keeping it straight.
Mm-hmm.
100%. But yeah, I mean, this is one of the biggest ones, one of the biggest challenges, I think. The rest, I think, my opinion, are much easier to write. Um, but give yourself some time for this one and really, really focus on the strategy. And I think, you know, you'll find something great to write about, but definitely not something that we're waiting to do till the
Mm-hmm.
last minute.
Yeah.
And I think students panic. Like they're like, I just want to get it done. I just want to get it done. And they just find something and they choose to write about it. And it could be so strong. It could be a great essay if you do the work. And I think it's so evident as
Mm-hmm.
well on the reader side if you researched or not,
Yeah.
or you just pulled something. They know their website's in and out. They know what's on the homepage. If you're pulling the exact jargon from the homepage, next.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you did not do your research. So I think those are my key takeaways.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
No, as like we'll say it probably a million more times, absolutely do the research in whatever way. Like we said, social media is right there. It is totally okay to go see students who are your age doing the things that you want to do.
Yeah,
Just be specific and just be mindful of the word count as well.
absolutely. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening today. And don't forget to like and subscribe as this series continues. And yeah, we'll see you next time.